Just Pearly Things or Pearl Davis has caused quite some drama on Twitter today specifically, but over the last few days as well. This is someone that I've wanted to talk about for quite some time, and I haven't been able to in this context, but I saw some of her tweets and her Twitter battles today, and I thought it was a perfect opportunity for us to go ahead and talk about it. So, if you don't know who she is, Pearl Davis is I guess like she has like a dating show or something, talks about relationships and dating. She's a volleyball player, and she moved to England last year, 2 years ago or something, to pursue volleyball. Now she does a podcast, and she'll be moving back to the United States soon, from what I understand. She likes to pride herself on being red-pilled and saying that she is trad or whatever, but a lot of criticism comes from that she doesn't really practice what she preaches. So I don't know if I'd call it pleasure, but I spoke to Pearl on Tuesday night. If you guys don't watch Timcast IRL, they do a member segment where members can call in. I was chosen to call in. I confronted her on some of the things that she had said previously about cheating, and thinking that essentially saying that like it is worth saving the marriage, but that the woman should just kind of submit to the man. And so if he were to cheat, she should put her family above all else. My problem is that if the woman's going to put the family above all else and her emotions, the man should be doing the same and just maybe not go sleep with another woman. That's kind of where I was coming from in my criticism. She called the premise of my question stupid, and so that was great. But then rambled on for like 2 minutes and didn't give me a chance to explain. The show had already gone late. I didn't want to interrupt. And then at the very end, Tim Pool says, "Did we answer your question?" And I just went, "Kinda, yeah," because I didn't know what else to say. And I sounded so defeated. Everyone was talking about how I just kind of was like, "Yeah, thanks." Like, people were like, "Oh, you sounded so defeated." I was like, it was not worth the battle. But I will say that Seamus Coughlin did come in and try to kind of facilitate like a little bit of pushback, but I didn't get to, and she cut me off when I tried. So that happened on Tuesday. So I was pleasantly surprised when I woke up and saw that she was facing backlash on Twitter today. She, again, like I said, she parrots these kind of red pill talking points, but also doesn't really live by them. And so I have a problem with that kind of hypocrisy. I just don't think it's okay to like say one thing, but do something entirely different. And she also doesn't really, how do I want to say it? She puts out a lot of stuff, but then like can't really defend her points. She did an interview with Nick Fuentes, who I'm not a big fan of, but he is someone that I would interview, like just to get that back and forth. But he did an interview with her. She posted it on Rumble, got pushback, deleted it, and then re-uploaded it because she's like, "I didn't realize who he was," and everyone knows who Nick Fuentes is. So I don't buy that excuse at all. But during that entire interview, she was like asking like, "Oh, well, I don't know what that means." So basically trying to learn from Nick Fuentes about like hot button issues. Not the best, person maybe in her mind, because she's part of that like manosphere kind of grift, I guess, because she's definitely grifting at this point. So we're going to pull up this first tweet from Aiden Mattis of the Lore Lodge, where he responded to a tweet that she said, "Let me ask my wife," with the puke emoji, basically saying that men shouldn't have to ask their wives, in these situations. Like whatever situation she's specifically talking about, if a man were to say, "Let me ask my wife," she thinks that's like gross. He said, "I hope no young women are following Pearl and thinking she's a role model. This is garbage. As a man, respecting your wife's opinion isn't just admirable, it's required." Ephesians 5:28, Pearl. "So husbands ought to love their own wives as their own bodies." So that, I agree with Aiden there, I think, because she does claim to be like, that trad, Catholic, conservative kind of, I think she talks a lot about that, but then goes back to say like, oh, wives should be, I think she said like 20/80 with their husbands or something. She said that 50-50 marriages are going to fail. So if you're getting 50-50 in a marriage, it'll probably fail, and that's just people trying to brainwash you. And Chris, you're married, so I'm gonna ask, how is what do you think about that?
So, I to a certain extent, she's on to something, but also completely way off track. The idea that a marriage, it should be 50-50 is like, ideally, yeah, 50-50. Well, not even 50-50, everybody's putting in 100%. But there's there's going to be times where one person's just got more of the load to carry at times. And I mean, I haven't been married that long. I'm coming up on 4 years this year, but we've been together over a decade now. Yeah, it's like it's not always fun. It is work sometimes. So she's on to that where it's like sometimes it is 80-20, sometimes it's 60-40.
But it shouldn't have to be that way. Like, it's not like a standard, it's always going to be 80%. You know, the man is the head of the household, but it's not always going to be like in a partnership, you have to be 50-50 sometimes, at least when it comes to like input on things. And she's basically saying that she used the analogy of the man being the boss and the wife being the secretary.
Typically, yeah, that and like even after COVID, when my wife lost like 2 or 3 of her, I think she lost all of her jobs at the time. We fell into the gender stereotype roles hardcore, and it worked. It made sense. It was I go out, I make the money, I come home, she takes care of the house, and it, you know, I didn't understand why everybody was so upset with, you know, gendered roles, because it's just that's the way that you survive. But yeah, I mean, even when she says that a man should be in charge, like, good luck having a dude tell his wife whatever's going to happen all the time. Like, that marriage isn't going to work out. You know, there has to be communication. There has to be mutual respect. So, but I also find it funny. She's what, 26 or so, and she's
26,
single
27. And yeah, she's not married. She's never been
yeah,
married. She actually
yeah,
started her whole like internet fame because her parents are rich and she grew up in a big mansion, and so she posts videos about the big mansion. She comes from a family of parents that are still together, and she's got a lot of siblings. And then she dated, I don't know if you know who this is, but Angry Reactions from TikTok. He
maybe.
went kind of viral in 2020, 2021.
Yeah.
And she dated him on and off, really kind of bad relationship, but that's how she started to get more popular. And I'm going to do a whole segment by myself at some point here, a video. I have communicated with one of her old friends saying she didn't used to be this like down on
Oh,
women.
wow.
She kind of changed really fast. Like she used to be, you know, like they were best friends from when they were kids. And then she started to change into this like kind of, I don't want to say far right, but she kind of took these ideals of the far right, saying like women must always submit to the man, blah blah blah, like those kind of parroted super red pill. And she says red pill a lot, but it's funny because I think she could use a red pill sometimes. But she takes that and tries to kind of grift off that. She does a lot of those like clickbait videos. She calls all of these like drama YouTube channels, she calls them fake news drama channels, like stuff like that, where it's like she kind of takes from different people on the right, and uses those different things. And then like she takes the Donald Trump of like the fake news extremist whatever, applies it, and
Yeah.
will put like, then she takes the Ben Shapiro, like destroys, you know, people on panel or something. So I've noticed she takes a lot from other people but isn't very original in her own thoughts.
So
Which
I will say, like, would you guys take health advice from somebody who's morbidly overweight? Would you? You know, would you really? Do they really know what they're talking about? And I'm not talking about someone who's. I'm talking about like massive. Okay, same idea. Are you going to take advice from somebody who's dirt poor about getting rich? Like, why would I take advice from a girl who's 26? She's not married. But she's going to tell you that she knows the way. Like, I'm not even like trying to say like take advice from me, because like I don't want to give advice. I'll give it if somebody asks, but like go to somebody who is in a marriage. Go to somebody who does have a strong
or a
relationship, and just
marriage counselor, like someone that specializes in these things, like someone who's a
yeah,
professional
you
in
know,
this, you know, someone who
yeah,
understands like, and I understand what she's saying, but it's how she's saying it and the message she's trying to portray. Like if she was just saying that like in a marriage traditionally the men are dominant, yes, that's accurate. But if she's going to say it should always be the man is dominant, that's just not true. And like life will throw circumstances at you to make that not true, like you were saying. Like you guys did fall into those kind of gender stereotypes, but like if you're going to go through something that's, you know, devastating for you. Your wife might have to step up, take care of things for a little bit while you, recover, get back to yourself, and then go on from there. I mean, like, I'm just looking at it too from a point of like, I had divorced parents and I was raised by my dad primarily. And she talks a lot about like, men never get custody, men this, like, they never get custody of the kids. And that can be true, but she's not looking at a lot of different circumstances and she's not considering, like, she talks a lot about no fault divorce. She talks about that kind of thing. She's not looking at like fault divorce, like actual fault divorce.
Yeah.
And so I think she just doesn't know what she's talking about because she's lived this kind of perfect, and I hate the word privileged, but it is a very privileged life. She's, lived off of her daddy's money. He owned a big business and big mansion, and wow, you got famous because people thought your house was cool. Okay, like, it's hard to take advice from someone who's had a picture perfect life and never really gone through anything hard. Or like I've seen the court systems with my parents and stuff. I've seen how that stuff plays out, and like my mom was primarily at fault for the divorce, and so my dad got custody of us. And it's not that my mom was a bad person or anything, she was wonderful, but like there are situations where that happens, and I feel like she just neglects those cases and tries to point out the ones where like, oh well, the mom did this and the court just gave the kids to her. Well, sometimes they can't prove it, sometimes they, and this touches on, I don't know if you saw Lauren Southern posted today about her husband left her and she got divorced. Yeah. She posted a long Twitter thing today and a video, and she talks about how her husband left and now she's a single mom and so she has custody of the kid. But the dad gave up. He was like, and I'm not going to sit here and talk ill of her ex-husband, but from what her post said, he up and left her with the kid. Wow. And so I think she's not looking at those situations where dads might just be like, I'm done with this, and, desert the family. And moms have done it too, but statistically, dads have done it more, unfortunately. So that's, I feel like those stories kind of go together. Another tweet that she had, Derek, if you can pull up this next one. She said, men are so brainwashed that their default is to ask their wife. Imagine that in a work setting wouldn't happen. I mean, what are you asking your wife, I guess, is the question. Like, you asking, hey, honey, what do you want for dinner? Because that's a terrible option if you're, trying to ask a woman what she wants for dinner. Don't do it. Just, like, make an executive decision at that point. Because I can tell you as a woman, if someone says, what do you want for dinner? My answer is always, I don't know. 100% of the time. It's no fail. Unless I'm really craving something that day, the answer is going to be, I don't know. And so I'm just saying that because, like, if that's the question, if that's, asking, whatever, then okay, like, I get it. That might be something where you have to be like, we're getting this or we're making this or whatever. But there's certain things, big choices in life, or maybe if you're going out to do something, just hey, honey, I'm going to go out with my friends, or I'm thinking about going out with my friends this weekend. Did you have anything planned? Is that good with you? Like, just running it by them and just being like courteous. Like, you're not asking for permission. You're it's just like an informal way of being like, I'm going to do this. Unless there's a reason I shouldn't, or I can't. Unless there's something I don't know about. So.
Yeah. No, 100%. Like, the joke back in the day when, like, old coworkers I had, or just friends when I was dating my wife, or even the girls I was dating before her, the joke would always be like, oh, you got to ask permission. And it was like, no, it was just like a respect, just like, hey, I'm gonna go do this thing. Are you cool with it?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Was there anything you wanted to do instead?
And I feel like that's so much more courteous. It's so much more courteous, especially like I would not want my partner to go and like make a huge financial decision and then come back and be like, I got a new mattress and a new couch, and I'm just like, what the hell, like. You didn't ask me about it? Like, and I think that's what she is saying, is that those things can happen and the woman should submit, because she said things in the past that give me that vibe of like women should just kind of get over it if it's like what the man wants to do, because it's a man's world. And I'm not going to be a feminist here, but I do think that in a relationship there is at least that mutual respect where you at least say, hey, I'm thinking about doing this. I know we can afford it. Yeah. How do you feel about that? Not about just spending money you don't have. It's more about like just run it by somebody, especially if it's going to affect their life as well. Just be like, hey, this will affect you. Like,
I noticed she's doing this thing that a lot of people tend to do when they talk about the gender stereotype, and they conflate power and authority over somebody with like a responsibility. So
Right.
when I say that like I'm in charge of my household, it doesn't mean that I have authority over my wife. It doesn't
Yeah.
mean I make decisions and she just does what I say no matter what. There
And I
might
don't
be
think she would let
situations
you do
where,
that.
yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
there might
yeah.
be situations where she's just gonna trust me, let me take the wheel, and whatever decision I
Right.
make is like, all right, I'm just doing it. But I have a responsibility to her in that
Right.
whatever decisions that get made ultimately comes down on me if we sink or swim. Does that make sense?
Right. That does make sense.
Yeah.
And and then this last tweet that I had ready, if you can get that one pulled up too, Derek, she's saying, let me ask my husband with the heart and like the prayer emoji and stuff, basically saying, like, that's, yes, do that. Again, in a relationship, there's a mutual respect. It shouldn't be, you can say, let me ask my husband, but you can't be like, oh, let me ask my wife. No, it should be, let me just run it by. Let me run it by my husband. Let me run it by my wife. Let me, like, I feel like that's different. It's not an ask. It's more of a let me run this by them, make sure it's good. Because, then it's going to affect them. They'll be home alone or taking care of this thing or whatever if I'm going out and doing something. So I'm going to run it by them and then get back to you. I feel like that's normal. I mean, maybe I don't I'm not married, so I can't speak to that as much. But to me, that seems healthy in a relationship to be able to ask those questions to
No,
your
it is.
significant
It's
other. Yeah.
it's a partnership. It's like a captain co-captain. So what that means is like not the authority, not the power, but like one person
Hmm.
has more responsibility over the other.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I hate when people conflate this kind of shit because they've never been in a marriage. Probably never been in a long term relationship, and if they were, it probably wasn't a good one.
Well,
So
like I said, I saw her on. I mean, it was again online relationship, but like it was a very public and messy breakup. It was on and off again. It wasn't a healthy relationship. She likes to fat shame people, and I'm just pointing this out because it's the hypocrisy, like kind of that
mhm,
same pattern. She fat shames. I mean, everybody. I've
yep,
seen it online a lot. Her
yep.
ex-boyfriend, the TikToker, he's a bigger guy. He's overweight for sure, and I'm not trying to be mean. I'm
Big
just
Boy
putting it
Nation,
out. Thick boy nation, that's right.
Big Boy
And
Nation.
again, and like I wouldn't normally like sit here and be like, oh, like he's over, but like the fact that she's pointing out, like, oh, I just think that fat people are gross, but your ex boyfriend, like, you literally are like grifting at this point. You're taking points that you probably don't understand and then saying them and hoping because you're a woman, you're gonna get away with them. And I know plenty of people like left and right that have problems with her. It's not just leftists and feminists. Like a lot of people have problems with her. A lot of people push back. I know the quartering, yes, he likes to, kind of instigate that online drama, but he pushed back a little bit. He's married, so if it came between the two of them, I think I would probably be more like, okay, well, like Jeremy's married. He's at least he's got that. She is a single, unmarried, like never been married, doesn't live by what she like. I have a problem with hypocrisy at the end of the day, and that's my biggest problem with Pearl. Is I think she's toxic for young women, and she's the Andrew Tate girl. If people don't know, you'll know when I say the Andrew Tate girl who I'm talking about. She basically sims for Andrew Tate like hard, but like to the point where it's like, girl, we get it. He's not going to date you. Like, calm down. But that's where I have a problem with her. So those are kind of my thoughts on the whole Pearl situation. I think that she's not someone that young girls should be looking up to, and I think she's creating a very like toxic idea of what women on the right look like because she gathered such a big following. People are like, oh, they just submit to men. We're not all like that. Some of us do push back a lot, or whatever. Like I said, there's instances, and I agree with Chris here. There's instances where you're gonna have to, as a man, you're gonna have to make those decisions, and then for the good of your household. But I again don't agree with 90% of what she says. But she claims to be like a red pill. She told Amala Aknabi. I'm sorry if I butchered that name, but from
I
PragerU.
think it's Epinobi. I think the K is
Epinobi,
silent.
Epinobi,
Epinobi.
Epinobi. Well, Amala,
Yeah.
Amala
Mhm.
PragerU. She did a live stream a few weeks ago where Pearl then, because Pearl was in the news for whatever reason, and she kind of slid into the the chat during this live show saying, "Let me come red pill you in LA." And I was like, "You really think that you need to red pill?" I mean, she is a former leftist. Like, talk about getting red pilled. Like, she did that already. So, like, again, she uses that kind of grift to be like, she's like, "Let me on your show so that I can red pill you." And it's like, she's like, and she even said, "My view or my name gets views." So we're gonna test that theory with this video, but we'll test that one out. But just that conceited, like, my name gets views. Like, okay, sweetie, it's not for the reasons you think. It's just not.
So,
Like,
full context, like I didn't know who she was before the Timcast episode. I didn't really watch it. I skimmed through it, and then I heard from what people were saying, and it was kind of like a 50-50 split, where all the women were typically saying she was horrible. All the men typically were saying, yeah, she's got some points.
and it seemed like some men were like, yeah, like, she has points here but not here. She has points here but not here. And that's kind of where I am, where I'm like, I think she's trying to say something, but she's not saying that. Yeah, she needs to stop. She needs to stop talking. I guess that sounds really rude, but like, she'll say something, you're like, yeah, and then she keeps going, and you're like, wait, no, like, that's wrong. That's not what I thought you meant. So, like, you know, she'll start really strong, and then just slowly just start. And so, again, you know, she's very I just, again, hypocritical is the best way I can describe her. And when I talked to her the other night, and she was like, "Well, the premise of your question is kind of stupid," I was like, "Okay," and you're not even gonna let me respond to you? Like, come on, like, I don't think she's ever been cheated on. I don't think she's ever had to go through anything hard, really, in her life. And she'll probably say she has gone through hard things, but relative to other people, I just don't see that as a reality. And so it's really hard to, you know, kind of feel bad for saying things like this about her, because she just doesn't seem to have a real understanding on, like, the emotions behind that and how that might affect family. So